This video is for the lesson 6.4 homework. We are dividing polynomials today. So number one, what is the name of a monomial or sum of monomials not including variables in the denominator or under a radical? So this is a polynomial expression, and that's what we've been working with. So a monomial is just one term. X squared is a monomial. As soon as we start putting a lot of those together, like here, x squared minus 7x minus 8, now we've created a polynomial. And then the polynomials even have names. So if the exponent is a 2, it's a quadratic. Okay? So this year we deal with quadratics. This year's real big on quadratics. Next year, you'll look at ones that have an exponent of 3. Those are called cubics. If it's just an x, 7x plus 8, that's a linear. And it's telling you the type of relationship it is. Linear makes a straight line. Quadratic makes what's called a parabola, a smile or a frown. All right, then number 2, what is the name of a 3-term expression? That's a trinomial. And so quadratics are trinomials. There's 3 terms. Squared term, plain old x, and then a plain old number. And quadratics always come in that format. Okay? All right, so we're going to divide these. So what we're going to do is we're going to set them up like regular old division. So whatever comes first goes underneath the box. Okay? And then whatever comes second goes outside the box. Okay. All we look at is this x. And just like with division, we go to the first term. That first term is x squared. So x times what would give me x squared? So I line it up with the other just plain old x. Okay? And then I multiply this out. X times x is x squared. 1 times x is a positive x. Now, when you're doing regular division, 80, let's do 800 divided by, let's change that. 864 divided by 2. So we would go 8 divided by 2 is 4, and then you'd go 4 times 2 is 8, and then you would subtract that, right? You do the same thing here. You have to subtract this. So what that means is it changes signs. So if they're positives, they become negatives. Okay? That's the difficult part of this. So x squared minus x squared, those cancel. Negative 7x and a negative x. Remember, there's an invisible 1 here. So negative 7 and a negative 1 make a negative 8. And then there's nothing being subtracted from this, so we just bring it down. Same thing here. Subtract here and you get a 0, and you bring the 6 down. You're just bringing that down. Okay. Same thing, you look at just the first. X goes into negative 8x. So, what do I have to multiply x by to turn it into a negative 8x? Negative 8. And then we multiply it out. Negative 8 times x is a negative 8x. Negative 8 times a positive 1 is a negative 8. Now remember, you've got to subtract it. You've got to subtract this, and in algebra, subtracting means you change sides. So if the sides are negative, they become positive. I know it's weird. So negative 8x and positive 8x, cancel. Negative 8 and positive 8, cancel. And that's what you're wanting. I'm only going to give you problems that everything cancels out nice and pretty on. Okay? So that is your answer. You can check your answer by doing what we did yesterday. Take what you divided by and multiply it by your answer. FOIL it, right? FOIL. X times x is x squared. O for outside. X times negative 8 is negative 8x. 1 times x is a positive x. 1 times negative 8 is a negative 8. If you combine like terms, negative 8x and a positive x make a negative 7x. And you get kind of where you started. Remember, you can also use that little hack in your calculator, that store, to do this as well. Okay? All right. And that's the answer to that one. So why this skill is useful, when we get into quadratics, you have to be able to factor them, which means we take a quadratic like this, and instead of writing it like this, we write it as its two factors, because these two factors gives us tons of information for quadratics. And being able to divide makes it a little bit easier to find those factors. All right, number 5. All right, so what comes first goes under the box. What comes second goes outside. Okay, just looking at the first. 5x times what gives me a 5x squared? So what's changed between these two? No. How would I make this x have an exponent of 2? X times what gives me x squared? X. Okay. 5x times x is 5x squared. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. You have to subtract it, so change the signs. If it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. So positive 5 and negative 5, variables are the same. This cancels. What you're doing here is you're combining like terms. Add the coefficients. So on that one, we would do negative 14 plus 4. And we get a negative 10. So that's what this one is. Negative 10x, and then bring down, plus 8. Okay. 5x times what gives me negative 10x? Negative 2, because look, the x's haven't changed, so we know there's not going to be an x in there. All that's changing is the coefficient, so you can just look at those. 5 times what gives you negative 10, or negative 10 divided by 5, which you can do in your calculator. But negative 2 is right. And we multiply it out. Negative 2 times a positive 5x is negative 10x. Negative 2 times a negative 4 gives me a positive 8. Change the signs. Negative becomes positive. Positive becomes negative. Negative 10x, positive 10x cancels. Positive 8, negative 8 cancels. Again, that's what we want. If it's not canceling there, something's wrong. So that one is x minus 2. Not too awful, right? Could be worse. It's like what we did yesterday. You gotta really take your time. Just go a step at a time. All right, 7. Whatever comes first goes in the box. Whatever comes last goes outside. Okay, 2x to 2x squared. So the coefficients are the same. We're not doing anything there. X times what gives me x squared? X. So I put it up, again, I'm putting it over the x. I'm lining up my terms. So 2x times x is 2x squared. Negative 7 times x is negative 7x. Change the signs. Positive becomes negative. Negative becomes positive. Positive 2x and negative 2x squared. Cancel. Negative 3 plus 7 gives me a 4. Keep the x. Okay. So again, just the first pieces. 2x times what gives me 4x? Not 2x, because look, I don't want to add an x, because I've already got enough x's. So I just want to multiply it by a number. Positive 2, because all I want to do is change this into a 4. So positive 2. All right, 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. Change the signs. Positive becomes negative. Negative becomes positive. As long as the signs are opposite and everything matches up, they cancel. All right, I am going to work number 9, but number 10 is bonus. This one has a remainder. And the remainders are what makes this difficult. And I'm not going to make you do a remainder question, okay? But I'm going to show you how to do it. So number 9, get a piece of paper here. Number 9. All right. First thing goes in the box. Second thing goes outside the box. All right. X times what gives me x squared? X times x. All right, multiply it out. X times x is x squared. X times 7 is 7x. If it's positive, it becomes negative. And we start working through. So these cancel. Positive 2x, negative 7x gives me a negative 5x. Bring down the negative 38. X times what gives me negative 5x? So we've got the x's, so what do we have to multiply this by? Negative 5. So negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 7 is a negative 35. Change the signs. So this cancels, but negative 38 plus 35 leaves me with a negative 3. This is how you know there's a remainder, because I pulled down the last term, but they didn't cancel out. So here's what you do. Here's your factor, x minus 5. Let's not write it that way. Let's do it this way. X minus 5. And then since this is a negative, we do negative 3 over whatever you were dividing by. X plus 7. That's how you write it with a remainder. Again, I'm not going to make you do one of those on your own, but just so you can see. And that's the same way you do remainders when you're working with just numbers. So if I wanted to do, let me think of a good one here. 15 divided by 2. 2 goes into 15 7 times. And if I subtract that out, I'm left with a 1. If you want your answer to be a fraction, you take what's left over and you write it on top of what you divided by, if you don't want to expand out the decimals. So it's the same process when you're working just with numbers. And in algebra, we like fractions. We don't like decimals. So that's why we use the fraction form of division. Okay? All right, so all I'm asking of you is 3 questions today, 4, 6, and 8. Okay? If you get stuck, ask. Don't sit and suffer. I'm going to write this one here. The other way that you can write these, you can write them almost like another term. It's the same thing. We put the negative 3 up here the other time and kind of smushed them together. That's okay. You can write it as another term too. So just so you know.